So thank you for being here. Michael, Dina, Kate, Hans, you guys have done such a great job pulling us all together and organizing us. And I just want to let you know that Seattle is a special city. And I remember when I was about 22 out of college, I didn't have money to go to Europe, so I hopped in a Honda with my best friend and we drove across the country. When I got to Seattle, I met incredible musicians and artists doing DIY things, and I was completely inspired. And then I come back here to this conference at a time when I'm feeling really challenged, and I'm pretty salty, actually. And I go to the Smash thing last night, and there I am in front of incredible musicians who are coming together for the community, and I'm re-inspired. So thank you, Seattle, and thank you guys for being here today.
Hands.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. How are we doing today? Ooh, let's do one more. That was bad. How are we doing today? Woo! There we go. I'm Hans from Campfire Music Foundation, a partner in Music Policy Forum. I am a living proof of this organization's commitment to youth engagement. I was a student of Michael Bracey's at Georgetown and have been fortunate enough to continue this work, and with my own nonprofit that you'll be hearing more about later as well. Thank you all for being here. This is a really special group of people, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you. Hold on.
And with that, I want to bring up Emily White, who's going to lead our first panel today. Emily, come on up.
Good morning. Thanks for coming out in the non-music industry hours of 9 a.m. while we get organized.
Yeah, cool.
All right, let's bring out our esteemed panelists. Then I'll tell you what we're talking about. Let's give it up. Oh, sorry. But oh yeah. Sorry. You guys can grab mics right there. Opening panel.
Set. Drop one.
Got enough mics? We're good? 2 mics? Love it. All right. My name is Emily White. I'm a best-selling author of a book called How to Build a Sustainable Music Career and Collect All Revenue Streams. I host the #1 music business podcast globally of the same name, and I'm the CEO and founder of Impact Concerts, as well as #IVoted Concerts. I'm also based in Brooklyn, so I'm like the outside opinion, perspective on Seattle and what we're going to talk about today. So the name of this panel is Somewhere Over the Rainbow. The Emerald City has a hard-earned reputation for building and sustaining one of the strongest, most nimble, and evolving music ecosystems in the United States. This is the result of decades of collaborative labor to identify challenges and opportunities to support members of the ecosystem, engage with policymakers and businesses, and generally remain vigilant and supportive of the scene. Not everything is perfect, however, as the Seattle ecosystem navigates all of the same challenges facing every American market. In this roundtable panel, a mix of Seattle area music champions are going to share their vision of what's working, what could or should work better, and where our music ecosystems are facing crisis points that require government intervention. So I'm going to let these amazing panelists introduce themselves, and we'll start with Larry and go down the line.
Check. Hey, what's up, y'all? I'm Larry Mizell Jr. I host the afternoon show at KEXP. Good morning.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kennady. I host the local music show on KEXP. It's called Audio Oasis on every Saturday. Good morning. My name's Megan Jasper, and I work over at Sub Pop Records as their CEO.
Hi, Jason Clackley. I'm the artistic director of the Vera project and the chair of the Seattle Music Commission.
Great. So the first 2 questions are going to be for everyone. We'll start with you, Jason, and we can go down the line again. Why is Seattle special to you?
Seattle, special to me. The Sonics, they're still coming back in my mind. My mom moved us to Bremerton, unfortunately, when I was in middle school, and I had an opportunity to live in a punk house in Seattle. And one thing that was really important in the early 2000s to me for Seattle was that there was a really strong DIY community. DIY music was really big, lots of warehouses that I could participate in. And so for me, Seattle had a really unique community-based scene at the time. And to me, that was where I built lifelong friendships and just, was inspired to be, more as a musician as well as, I guess, a promoter, if you will, as well. Yeah.
Incredible. I would say the word you used earlier is the source of so much of the good, and that is collaboration. I think we live in an unusually collaborative place. We often come together for a million different causes, and I think it's just part of how we work and who we are, and so much good can come from it and has.
Yeah, I just want to echo that really quickly. I think that's so important for musicians to understand. And, it's like cliche, but rising tides really raises all boats. What's good for you is what's good for me. You can learn together. You can grow together. I don't see that enough in a lot of cities and music scenes. So it's really wonderful to hear you say that. Kennady?
Yeah, I think community will come up time and time again through all of our discussions because that's something that's really special to me about Seattle. I didn't grow up in the city. I grew up on the east side in Bothell area. I hated it and was so happy when I came to Seattle because I knew some people that lived here, some people who were creating, making music, and I just so wanted to be a part of that. And once I came to Seattle, I felt so welcomed by not only my peers, but so many organizations that helped uplift me through my late teen years. So yeah, it's been so instrumental, no pun intended, in who I am. So yeah, that's why I love Seattle.
Larry?
Why is Seattle special? The city, the South End, the trees and the water, how beautiful this place is and how it inspires people, and then how it drives you inside when the weather's not gorgeous to get weird, and this incubates weird. It rewards strange and studied and unexpected, and I think that's a really beautiful thing about this place.
Great. And we're going to stick with you for the next question and open it up to everyone. With that in mind, what are ongoing challenges Seattle faces?
It's impossible to live here. It's highly unaffordable to the vast majority of people. A lot of people have left, decamped for other cities and scenes where they can afford to be, and have taken some of the sauce with them, for sure. The weird kind of way that this is a strange nanny state where you can't get a BLT after 9:30 p.m., let alone, I don't know. And again, I love this place. I've given my whole heart and soul here, and it lives here, and it always will. But when you go to Detroit, you go to a bunch of cities that aren't Seattle, we all know Seattle's different. You're just like, oh my God, I wish we had this here. Why can't it happen? And that script is always running in the back of my brain. Yeah.
If it makes you feel better, I feel like most cities you can't get a BLT past 9:30, except for New York.
I know post-COVID, the BLT game is washed, for sure. We all know this. Forget about it.
Kennady?
Yeah, I think that the fact that this city is so unaffordable is probably one of the main challenges that I talk about with people. Especially as a young person, it's unaffordable for everyone, but I just know so many of my friends who don't live in the city, don't have access to certain places because it's just not feasible. I think that also there's I've seen so many DIY venues close down in Seattle, so many now places that are struggling, and I think one that comes to mind is the old Redmond Firehouse, which now has been displaced. And I see time and time again that these places close down and more pop up, but it's really disheartening to see places that have been around for so long and been doing so much work in the community now closing down. So I think that's definitely a challenge. And again, how we have been able to stay together as a community is by banding together. And I think that that's just been kind of more challenging in the last couple of years, it seems, for a variety of different factors. But yeah, I find that is like probably the most challenging thing about Seattle right now.
Yeah, I won't soapbox on this too much, but I know affordability is a massive, massive issue here, but it just seems like that's the case in so many cities across the United States. We're in this modern Gilded Age, and I can't personally provide this solution, but I just feel stronger than ever that we need to take care of each other. We need to take care of workers. There needs to be living wages. And, to go back to that word we talked about before, the power of community in making that impact is so, so important. Megan?
I'm going to triple down on affordability because it really feels like an existential threat to Seattle. And the one thing that is different is that we are a city that is defined by music, and not every other city is. I know that there are some that for sure are, but that is who we are. And the fact that we are making it near impossible for people who create culture and support culture to live in the city that uses culture to lure people in, that feels existential to me.
Absolutely. And we'll get positive after this, I promise. But
I'm usually way more optimistic.
Not that you're not, but we got to keep it real. Jason?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna be this dissenting person. I mean, I have like 3 lake houses myself here, so I don't know what y'all are talking about for. I stay at a different one every day of the week. So, but yeah, I mean, affordability. I mean, growing up doing shows here, we had a lot of warehouse spaces, and some of them are still around. The SS Marie Antoinette, the building still exists. Being a person that has been a part of the Black Lodge Collective for too many years, and having my organization come in and try to save that from, could be completely becoming a kaput, growing a community space there while the Hostess factory shuts down and everything around it is different. And it's become this kind of like tech thing. I just think ultimately, from my view, holding our elected officials accountable to this is the most important thing we can do. And that doesn't mean necessarily accusing them, but sorry, not sorry, they make policy. So the thing is like really holding our elected officials accountable to making sure affordability exists in the city. We don't need a AI space on the pier, sorry, but I mean we're putting ourselves out of jobs by doing that. We don't need to get into AI today unless you want to, because that could be another hour. But the point is that we're not investing where we should be investing. And to Megan's point, we are a music city, but unfortunately elected officials don't believe that sometimes that we're in a music city. And then that, you're all voters in Seattle, or you're not. Some of you are from other places, but the people that are voters in Seattle should vote for people that are actually going to support your economy, are going to support your ability to not only build culture, even if that culture is subculture or creative economy, but that needs to happen. And if that can't happen, then you get voted out.
And where should we be investing and encouraging those politicians to focus?
Well, workforce development is a huge one. Post-pandemic, something my organization worked a lot on was basically just trying to get new people in the industry. And the big gap was that a lot of people retired because they're like, I don't want to do this anymore. It's a good time for me to retire. I'm going to get out of it. But it was also a really unique opportunity to get a more diverse group of young folks, queer and trans and BIPOC folks into that industry. And so that was really exciting to be able to get new folks into our production world. That's where a lot of jobs are going to be, in my opinion. But it doesn't mean that we can't bolster building more opportunities for small record labels and production companies and all that kind of good stuff. But us could continue to create culture bearing and everything like that, whether you're into DIY or you're into music industry stuff. I think we just need to be able to have this time and space and funding to be able to do that kind of stuff.
And we're going to keep it with you because you really define this next question. But what are examples of Seattle nonprofits and government support making a meaningful difference?
I think I see it every day, at least for me. I mean, I've worked in nonprofits most of my life, whether it was working in homeless services when I was younger. I worked a lot of social work, working in youth development for most of my 30s. I worked at Ground Zero Teen Center on the east side, which was the other one of the firehouse, was closed down by the Boys and Girls Club. Was a huge vacuum in part of the east side's ability to have like youth that are, you know, I always say, like, I want the freaks to come hang out, you know, because I was a freak and I want more freaks, and we want space, you know, and so continuing to, I guess, if this answers the question, continuing to bolster spaces that really create at-risk divergence. I had a good conversation with Gurmai, who's running for executive office in King County yesterday, and a big part of it was like emphasizing, like, because the table was like, what are you going to do about homelessness? What are you going to do about homelessness? I was like, well, there's this thing called capitalism, and there's this thing called greed, and but ultimately getting youth where they're at and making a difference there. I think that nonprofits can be really impactful, and there's lots of different arts nonprofits, and they all meet the needs of certain youth, you know. Ours is a specific thing at Vera, and there's lots of other spaces for other folks. Yeah.
I promise we will move on, but like, what can other cities learn about Vera Project? Because it is just extraordinary.
I guess, I mean, you know, that it's a community power thing. I know that it's not just a couple of us. I mean, lots of folks in this room have been contributors to the Vera Project success, and that's the testament to the community coming to it. Folks that here at Tuazik Zulu who didn't have space here, that used Vera in the early days to be able to find community space to do breakdancing and all sorts of other stuff. Like, their programming happened at Vera too, and that community and the only reason I think a place like the Vera Project exists is because there's stakeholders, you know, because a paid staff can only do so much, but it takes a whole village to run something that is unique and has such a democratic process. And, you know, so yeah, I don't know.
Love it.
Cool.
Megan, services played a role throughout your career. What have you seen? What are examples of positive impacts that you've seen with nonprofits and government here in Seattle?
Oh my God, like way too much to even mention. But I would say, I mean, the Vera Project is massive because it is a place for young people who have way fewer options than any of us oldie locks. And that it gives young people a place to actually have a real community that they can participate in and learn from, and then come into places like KEXP or Sub Pop or wherever with real skills and where they can truly contribute in a meaningful way. I'd also say, I forgot the second part of the question. I know there's like the nonprofit thing. We have a fuckload of amazing nonprofits. Pardon my French. What Ben does with Sonic Guild is huge. It supports artists who are like able to do what they do, make a living, have a head start at something. Like, it's very impactful and meaningful. But we have a ton of nonprofit. Smash. A bunch of you guys were at the benefit show last night. You know, it kills me that we actually have to do that for people to have preventative health care. But you know what? There is a need, and there is a solution in the works, and that is Smash. So we have an incredible amount of nonprofits who are supporting. And I just want to say one thing, like one of the things that has made me so excited about the conversations that we've had like yesterday and again, even this morning, is that, and some of you folks have said, like, it takes a village. It's all about community. We don't have one person or two people doing everything and driving everything in Seattle. There is an incredibly large, rich community of individuals who are conditioned because we've kind of come up in it, of people who are giving back, continuing to participate, continuing to learn, able to give back again. And it makes for a very rich experience. And we're very lucky to have that.
Yeah, and just to highlight some of those examples, Sonic Guild gives awards, grants to musicians, and Smash supports artists with sustainable healthcare. So really just extraordinary stuff. Kennady, how have these nonprofits and government support in the Seattle music ecosystem shaped you and your career?
So much, like so much. One of the organizations that really introduced me to music and playing music and being a part of that community is Rain City Rock Camp. And for those who don't know, Rain City Rock Camp is an awesome organization, and it's a camp that happens every summer. They do things all around the year, but within a week, you get together with a band, you write a song, and you perform it at the end of the week. So I'm really lucky that even though I wasn't living in Seattle, my mom put me into that camp when I was 8. So that's when I first picked up a guitar and learned how to play an instrument, be in a band, and I fell in love and went back every single year. And then I, from there, interned and then became a volunteer. I sat on their board for a short period of time. So that's really an organization that has helped me so much. They introduced me to KEXP. KEXP collaborated with Rain City Rock Camp, and I got to play it in studio when I was like 16. I was so nervous. And through that, I met some of the DJs there, and I learned about 90 Teen, and that was is the youth program that we have at KEXP, which is how I got involved at the organization. So, all of the organizations in Seattle, especially the ones that serve youth, are so interconnected, and like that, it just kind of put me on like a ladder to get where I am. And I had so much support along the way, and so many adults and role models who were there to kind of talk to you about things and give me connections to people and just like tell me I was doing a good job and that I should keep doing it. So yeah, also I think that a lot of these youth organizations create a third place for young people, and I hear that a lot with young people now, and even my peers, of like the lack of third places that exist that are like physical places, not online, where you can see people and talk to people and like physically feel that community. I think that's so important, especially as folks excuse me, who have grown up kind of with the internet, and being able to have those places on the internet is super important too, but also having that physically grounded place with trusted adults is really awesome, which is why I love the Vera Project. When I was like 15, I moved to Seattle. I would go to punk shows all the time at the Vera Project, just in the gallery, and it was so much fun, and I just felt so at home there, and I felt so at home in all of the spaces that I was a part of. So there have been so many different people, and also shout out to like all of the women in the music industry who have supported me, because I'm like, that has been so important. I feel like especially at KEXP, really there was so many women who work at KEXP who have advocated for me and supported me and given me advice. Like that has been so important to me, being where I am today. So yeah, shout out to them.
Is it okay if I share your age?
Yes.
Kennedy is 23. So yeah, exactly. And so this is like a superstar shining example of what, this incredible music ecosystem can do when we all are supporting each other. So like, we're just in awe of you. So Larry, KEXP is a nonprofit.
Yes, it is.
So what do you see that's working, at the intersection of government, nonprofits, and the music ecosystem?
Yeah. Well, KEXP is a huge... I can speak best to, I guess, my experience. KEXP taught me about music in my backyard. It taught me about music beyond the stuff I'd been raised on, that I was hearing on the end in Cube 93 when I would go between the different radio stations. It's informed me a lot. 206 Zulu, hugely important. Shout out to Chasm, shout out to Kitty, shout out to the whole crew. As a younger artist, Zulu put out my group's first terrible record. And really stood on business and were super ethical when even the larger organization they were part of were experiencing some profound changes in a way I really admired. The Vera project, huge, also super instrumental when I was a much younger artist, and a place where I saw so many great shows and provided that third place Kennady spoke to, that's so necessary. We can't all go drink and hang, though that's a lot of fun. Having a place to be where that's not a part of it, and you don't have to have $20 to spend, is really important. I mean, I know it costs to go to shows and stuff, but nominal fee. As far as how it interacts with the government loading, I'm still not sure on that. I have to get outside a little bit more, I suppose.
You can hang out with Jason too.
Yeah, I like hanging out with Jason.
Yeah, we hang out in the breezeway.
Yeah.
So that said, Larry, what do you think is missing in Seattle's music ecosystem?
So I spent most of my time working in culture in Seattle, advocating, being entrenched in, being an artist in the hip hop scene in Seattle. So I guess I can speak best to what I see there, and that probably reverberates along lots of different scenes, but it's become really atomized. It's become kind of disenfranchised. It used to be, the toast of the city. This is us at our best. And that's kind of disappeared a little bit in a number of years after some huge, big successes. So that's weird. I don't see the advocacy piece. I know that I think it helped having somebody write about it every week in The Stranger. And I know when I left that gig, nobody else kind of filled in, that it didn't seem like that. And I'm not trying to come for The Stranger. There's good folks, and I like their new situation going on over there. Shout out to Emily and everybody. But you have to have somebody that's on the ground and is advocating for what's going on, and a host of entities and organizations that are providing spaces. What does it need? It needs places for people to live. It needs access. It needs a thriving underground. I feel like we've reached a time when it's like, that's really where stuff is at. I was really excited to see new clubs in the last few years, Baba Yaga in the Square, Clock Out in the South End on Beacon, huge. But also, I just saw the Sun Ra Orchestra at NAF Studios, a room I haven't been in 25 years when I used to rave. And that's exciting that that's there and open and viable, and not a thing where the fire chief is going to come in with the axe like back in the day. We need more stuff like that. Like some of the spaces that Jason mentioned. We all need those spaces. We need an underground where things can happen at above ground, above board, underground, but also the stuff that isn't too, that you have to look for. I think that's really, really vital, and that's where the exciting stuff happens. It gets incubated, and where new superstars are kind of minted and go on to make a difference in the rest of the architecture.
Absolutely. Kennady, what do you feel is missing? What can we as a community and industry help you create? No pressure.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Larry kind of hit on this, but I don't know. I hear a lot about, I mean, there's so much music being put out. So many of these talented artists where I'm like, why the fuck aren't they blowing up? Like, I think about bands like Blackens, who definitely have gotten some attention, lots of love from KEXP, but still, like, nationally, I don't feel like they get the recognition they deserve. I think that we've lost some of the art infrastructure of promoting these artists outside of Seattle. I think that there's a lot of DIY things like zines, and a friend of mine runs this website called Wash Magazine, and he interviews artists. But also it does come down to the amount of time that we have, the time that we have to take working our regular jobs, and then on top of that, doing work, writing articles, and I don't know. It's just, it seems like kind of a hard thing that I've talked with people. I ran a zine for a while too, for about 2 years, and I loved it. It was so much work, and I just couldn't keep up with it after a while. And I knew that it was doing good in the community, that it was giving a platform to people, but also I was actively losing money like all the time. So I think that having more of that arts infrastructure in the way of more of these bands being written about in publications, having our own publications here. I mean, that has been The Stranger, and The Stranger still does do stuff like that, but I feel like not the same frequency. Another like music blog that comes to mind is Three Imaginary Girls, who used to write about like every single local show and would have a show calendar and these things. So I don't know. I think that it also just might have to do with this era of like the blog kind of being out. I'm hoping it'll come back in. But yeah, I think that is like a big thing when I talk to artists, when I talk to writers, that comes up time and time again, is that lots of us are doing a lot of work for the community, but also it can lead to burnout, which is not good. And that is like a vicious cycle that cannot like continue long term. So I don't know what the answer is, but that's definitely a challenge that I have noticed within our community and within this music community. Yeah.
I think, we talked a little bit about this yesterday. I think something that is missing a lot of places is very practical music business education, because there's a lot of information out there, but it can be fragmented and out of order. So maybe that's something we can start to develop here and take elsewhere. So Megan, what about you?
I think always more access, especially for young people, and especially super young people who aren't really old enough to get themselves to like an all ages show, but always more access to music and art, especially in our public schools.
What do you, Jason, what do you think the young people at Vera Project feel is missing from the Seattle music community?
Well, the young people, for the most part, I think at Vera overall, the ones that really participate are really hungry for cultural bearers, for folks to talk to them about what used to be, and to build an evolution of what used to be. I think that if we talk about the lack of, from my standpoint as a person that has probably lost more money than made money in my life being a musician and booking shows, I'm just not a business person. That's all there's to it. But and I know that about myself. But I do love community wealth building. And the big part is that I got older, and it became less. It as much time as I would like to put into teaching young folks, and that's my job. It's like sometimes I got to work and take care of my child and my family and stuff. But I think what's lacking right now is because of people being priced out, people moving, priorities changing. We lack some of the cultural bearing that used to exist, where it was more obvious on the surface. You would go to DIY shows, and especially in punk and hardcore as I was growing up, and you would see examples of people doing the damn thing and being like, for the love of it or whatever it had to be. We did the 18-year anniversary of Iron Lung Records, a whole weekend of Iron Lung Records, so all punk and hardcore and weirdo music, post-punk and noise and whatever else. And it was an amazing community event all weekend. And that's the kind of stuff I know that when I talk to young folks, they want to see, at least at Vera, is that it's less about what they're going to do for their career and more about how they're going to survive. A lot of them are gender expansive, looking for space where they're like, and I know that because when I was a kid in Bremerton, it wasn't unlikely that I'd be called, the F-bomb riding my road bike down the street. And I was like, well, yeah, I am gay, but you don't have to use that word. But fighting for existence was really important. Fighting for the ability to exist. So subculture is so important. So what's lacking right now for me is like spaces to have that subculture. Punk and hardcore kids or cockroaches will find places to go anywhere, will play anywhere. But it becomes exceedingly harder every day for that to even happen. Whereas like we could just find a crappy room that was falling apart before. And now those crappy rooms have turned into AI immersion centers. And it's like, just, could have taken old Ivers and turned it into something cool. But yeah, I think that's where it's lacking, is like, I would like to see, and I obviously can do this with my positionality. But a lot of the young folks at Vera, they ask me questions all the time. What was it like in the early 2000s? I was like, well, young man. And, but they just want community. Whether or not they're ever going to get paid to play music in a real way, they want to go on tour and meet new people. They want to build lifelong friendships with people, national, international, regionally. They want to have experiences. That's all I wanted. I wanted to learn from other people. I wanted to play music. I wanted to become a better musician. And I wanted to build community. And I have that. And I'm really blessed to have that. I'm blessed to be able to go anywhere in the world and be like, oh, I got a homie in South Africa that I can stay with and play some, but it's like because of the DIY scene that I'm able to do that. And I know that a lot of youth ask for that same thing. And that's that anti-capitalist kind of thing. And it's also something that's really needed, and from my advice is always like, you do what you do. And if it becomes something very successful monetarily, hell yeah, that's awesome. But also do what you do because it feels good for you, so.
Love it. Megan, what do you think should be preserved in Seattle's music ecosystem?
Ooh, I kind of just want to cheat and say everything. I think, I guess just kind of, it's goofy, but it's our connection with each other and our connection to our purpose in being here right now. I think it's all about never losing the drive and the reason why we're here. I think it speaks to what you were just saying. It was impossible to not think of myself also as a kid and really remember how desperately I needed to be a part of the punk scene on the East Coast where I grew up, because for me, that was like a fucking lifeline. It was the only place I felt like myself. It was the only place I felt like I was around my people. And it gave me a purpose and a drive that ended up really dictating my path. So I hope that's the thing that's preserved, because that's the thing that makes us truly mission driven. And I think so long as we're able to
stay in that mindset and live in that mindset, then we can continue to contribute and hopefully do some really good things together.
At both.
Kennady, what do you want to see preserved?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just kind of piggyback on what you were saying. I think that the community here is something that makes Seattle stand out. And also, I want to see all of our historic music venues preserved. I want to see these places that have been around for 20, 30 years be preserved. I don't want to see these venues going away, these places that, like the Vera project, that young people can gather together. I mean, I think that's kind of a constant living in Seattle. I mean, I've only lived here for like 10 years, but I'm sure that y'all agree that like a constant is seeing things disappear.
Right.
Seeing places just kind of vanish that have been so big in the community. So yeah, I mean, just I hope to preserve our places that have so much history in them. I hope to preserve our communities that we have here, and that we use to uplift each other. I think that's really important.
Larry, why is the preservation of community radio important? Because we do have a presidential administration that is trying to dismantle community radio nationwide.
Oh boy. Yeah, CPB funding is definitely on the plate right now. So we're talking about that a lot right now. Community radio is really important because it's access for people to hear music, hear stories. Everybody just spoke to the need for us to preserve stories and how young people really need to hear stories of what happened and what worked and why things are the way they are. I don't entirely understand why Seattle is so good at erasure, besides the fact that lots of money has always been made here, and that's one of the functions of capitalism. So that just kind of scrubs things away. There's all sorts of stories that have gone away, and people have to be able to get on a microphone or in front of a camera. Shout out to Zulu. They've been doing a great series, storyteller series, recording folks talking about their stories and by large, the story of this place. I think it's really important because it gives, it's another place where somebody like Kennady can come up and become an advocate and a superstar in the scene, where lots of people can, where people like legends like Vitamin D can become a part of KEXP and bless the whole world with their musical vision that is so unique. There's so many ways it's really vital, and it makes people's lives better when they encounter it. It grounds them in place where they are, and the voices that are active here and what they're talking about, the stories that are being written right now.
So last question is for Jason. What can other cities learn from the Seattle Music Commission?
It sounds like a lot of people don't have a commission, so they should get a commission. That's one lesson. I know that's not as easy, but Seattle Music Commission was started by some founders of the Vera Project, and I think it's just to really focus in and make sure that there's a really, really strong lobby for creative economy. And not only that, I mean, I got on the Seattle Music Commission not only because of my understanding where I live in both those worlds, where I'm like make money, and then also like lose money and just do community. But I mean, what Larry's saying earlier is like subculture is really important. And for me, like, I need to make sure that people know that subculture exists. Also, what elected officials don't also understand is that subculture makes money for the city. When we go to a different town, we got to pay their sales tax. I got to eat out. I got to do sugar tax or whatever else is in that town. And it's like, it's not foreseen, but it's basically tourism, right? And so part of that, I have to be like, there's a lot of bands that come through here, smaller bands that spend all their damn money to stay in your hotels, stay all that kind of stuff. But for the Music Commission, it's really important to have some type of body that can talk to legislators, that can get the ear of legislators. We had a huge win recently working with Office of Economic Development and SDOT. Shout out to Scott and Virginia in the room today. Sorry if there's other SDOT folks in the room and OED folks, but we had this huge win where we really pushed for parking in front of venues. Something you only see in like Austin and maybe a couple other places, but it's kind of revolutionary. It's boring, probably to a lot of people, like, oh, Article RCW5 to zoning, blah, blah, blah. But it's really important because it's something that musicians and venues have been asking about for so many years. And so now for $250 a year on a permit, any music venue that does an X amount of shows a year, and I think it was like 2, it's like such a small barrier to entry. The Music Commission was able to help push through this legislation that there'll be music venue parking right in the front just for artists, just for the venue, which for people that own venues or run venues in this town know how freaking annoying it is when some fool pulls up to your parking and won't leave, and you're like, can you get the hell out? I got a band coming. And they're like, well, I don't care. So, the commission is, I implore people that don't have a commission to really push for a commission, because it can be really powerful. And these little things, these little legislations, like, it have a huge impact for not only your community, your industry, and also just like, it can't possibly it does make money in the long run for the city, but it just in a different way. So.
Yeah, and real quick, one thing we talked about yesterday to do that is electing city council members that are pro Music Commission, and also providing any sort of economic impact info of how much, what you're talking about, hotels and shows, and I mean it's in the billions of dollars. So I look forward to exploring that more throughout the day and in the future. But let's thank our amazing panelists.
Great. Yeah, it's a